Good morning or good afternoon, friends. Thank you for joining us today with another episode of Unbreakable Men. Men, real stories, real transformation. I am so excited to come to you today and to really get to the heart of what men are going through and what they're facing and how they bring those challenging moments in life and turn them into fuel for their purpose. I have the privilege and the opportunity with Unbreakable Enterprises to work with so many men and women who literally along their purpose and their path, of discovering purpose, we find all of those hidden gems, those moments in life where they really had to make a decision, a turning point, and say, this is who I am. This is my anchor. This is what I'm leaning into. And this is my call to make a difference in the world. And today's story and today's guest that you're going to meet here in just a moment literally had those moments in life where he took his beautiful message into the world. And you're going to hear about how he's doing that today and how he is empowering others through many different platforms that he has created. But let me tell you, I met this man just a few weeks ago. Literally, I feel like I've known him forever. I feel like our paths crossed at the most amazing, beautiful time as we're both launching into purpose in some interesting directions. But he came across my path because he was visiting Austin, Texas, leading a speaker competition. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that here in a few moments. But let me introduce you to my new friend. He is a visionary. He is a leader. He runs a podcast. He teaches people how to share their stories, how to show up with excellence. And let me just tell you a little bit about my new friend, Christoff J. Weihman. He is a nationally recognized speaker, coach, and best-selling author, the founder of the powerful program called Standing Ovation, which is a coaching training program for aspiring and professional speakers who want to up-level their game. He has different programs and partnerships, including his transformational ultimate speaker competition, which is where I met him. Woohoo! We'll talk about that in a moment. He has been recognized as top 15 coaches in Nevada and is currently in nomination to receive this beautiful Silver State Award. And I know we'll talk about that here in just a moment. He is the creator, the owner with his wife of the Heart-Centered Summit, which is all about helping visionaries rise with excellence and share their heart-centered story with the world. There is so much more, and I know he is going to share. But without further ado, please help me welcome my friend to the stage, Mr. Christoff Weihman. Hello.
Woo! Hello, Teresa. Well, I was going to say welcome to you. I'm usually the host. I feel welcome. Thank you.
Aww. Well, I am so excited to have you here with me today, friend. And wow, wow, wow. What a story it is already for how we met and the work that we're going to do together. And we're going to talk more and more about that in a moment. But Christoff, I have a question for you.
Yes, I know you do.
What makes you tick? What gets you excited? What causes you to show up every day looking excellent, leading with excellence, and charging the way for many others, my friend?
I say our highest calling is to use our gifts in service to others.
Yeah.
And the world is waiting for you, for me, to heed the call. And I didn't always understand that, but I now know that my calling is to connect with heart-centered leaders and to empower them to share their greatness and their gifts. And there was a time when I served in the mission field. When I was 19 years old, I went overseas and answered the call, joined a non-denominational Christian organization. And I spent many years, and we can talk a little bit more to whatever degree you would like. But when I was there, I knew that was my calling, my path, and my purpose. But when that season of my life ended, it took me a long time to figure out what I was supposed to do when I grow up. And I was already in my mid-30s. And it took me a long time to realize that as long as we are using our gifts and talents, that is our calling. And we don't have to have, when I was a missionary, I thought this was a noble calling, and it is, but it's not any more noble than anybody doing any kind of job or business or work, as long as it is born from the gifts that God has given us.
Wow. I love that. And I would love, I love one thing about podcasting is you may have an agenda or a script, but the answer really directs the next point, right? And that's what I love. And when you're working and you're talking with somebody who is just heart-centered, like you said, Christoff, so many men get stuck, I believe, particularly in a place that you just described. And I will share with you that somebody that I love very dearly had a lot of his identity wrapped into a business that he created and he established. And this business was obviously his logo. It was his calling card, his business card, all the things, right? And in an instant, quicker than you could literally slip, his business slipped from underneath him and he lost his business. And for a while, I believe he lost his purpose and his identity was so wrapped in that. Christoff, in your situation now, you said the ripe old age of 30. I'm sitting here thinking, man, I was still
mid 30s, but
30 years old. We're like, that's midlife. No, it's not anymore. But that's an interesting time, right? You've built some things. You've built this identity, this brand, this mission, this call, and it's shifted. And how did you give yourself permission to realize that your identity was not wrapped in what you put your hands to? It was wrapped in the gift that you carry. How did you come to that place?
I think it was a pretty long journey. I left my hometown of Ottawa, Illinois when I was 19 years old. So I went to junior college right in our nearby community. I didn't go away for college like my other siblings did. And I spent the next 13 and a half years overseas. Wow. And when I came back to the U.S., I didn't know what I was supposed to be or do. I always, and I went from service in ministry to eventually, I always worked in hotels and restaurants, and I loved that. But it wasn't until I connected with Wolfgang Puck, who I consider the original celebrity chef. I started working with him in Los Angeles, and my job as a server or a bartender, they call their people butlers. It's a pretty cool title.
Yeah.
It went from being a job to really a shift to actually being a passion. Wow. And so I went from service in ministry to now this other type of service, which is customer service and hospitality. And I found out that I was really good at it, that I cared about it. And I guess at the heart of it is caring for people. Right. So in the mission field, caring for people in a certain way, feeling a call of answering a call from God. And then in service and hospitality, it is so, I've come to realize, in fact, I ended up writing 2 books on that subject, which launched my service and hospitality training company called Aspire Enterprises 10 years ago here in Las Vegas. My first book called Getting to Wow, Everybody Wins with 5-Star Service. I came to understand and realize that what people in the hospitality industry do is not about just serving food and drink. It's about creating experiences for their clientele. And I don't know if this answers your question or if I'm just going too much off on a tangent, but
no, it's
great. But still, I think I always still had this. I felt like a failure because I answered this call to be a missionary. And my wife, got married in the Philippines. My first wife, now previous wife, ex-wife, is from the Philippines. I learned the language, the culture. We had 2 beautiful children, and then she was pregnant with our 3rd child, and he was born prematurely and only lived 5.5 months. And his passing away was the beginning of the destruction or separation of our marriage. And when we separated, and then I ended up leaving the Philippines because I had no need to be in the Philippines anymore, I, for many years, felt like I was a failure because here I was supposed to serve God, and I strayed from my marriage. And I've never said that before on anybody else's podcast. So,
Okay.
And so even though I then found a new calling in service and hospitality, it took me quite a few more years. And I think it was when I became connected with Les Brown and the great motivational speaker. And that's where I ended up formulating, it's not just a quote, but it's what I live by. The thing that I said at the beginning, our highest calling is to use our gifts.
Yeah.
So it's not about if we are using our gifts, if we are serving at that level, then we are serving God and we are serving our fellow man. And that's what I believe that we are here for.
Christoff, I think that's beautiful. I want to ask you a question around those feelings that you were in when you were in that season of life that you felt like you were failing. What sustained you? Because I hear your heart right now. I hear the feeling of, I let God down, or whatever it is that maybe you felt. I don't want to put words into feelings because they're your feelings, not mine.
I felt all of it. I felt like I let down everybody. My family. I come from a small town. I was the first one in my family to get married and the first one to have kids and the first one to get divorced.
Yeah. You're like record breaker. Wait a minute.
So proud of some of those things, but not all of them.
Yeah. Yeah. What part of self-forgiveness do you think took place in that? Or was it that allowed you to climb up out of that feeling of failure?
I think it was more of a process and a lot of personal development and a lot of internal work. I can't identify a specific event that it clicked for me. And I know that for many years, here's what's interesting. When my son passed, so I'm an American in the Philippines with my family. And while I was with the mission organization, it was a volunteer mission organization. So we were not supported. So my secondary job was fundraising the whole entire time that I was there. If we did not have checks coming in the mail, and this was long before the days of the internet, and I couldn't go do a Facebook Live, or there were no Kickstarters or GoFundMes or anything like that. So the week that my son ultimately passed away, we didn't know that, I started looking for a job in the Philippines, in Manila. And here's my previous wife, my kid's mom, who was bedridden because she had pulmonary, she had heart surgery. She almost died during childbirth. And I went looking in the want ads for a job. Now, the economy in the Philippines is about a 20th of what it is as a developing country here in the United States. So I could make some money while the medical bills were not equal to what they would be here in the U.S., they were still tens of thousands of dollars. And and they do these, there's many sales companies that do direct selling. And their style is that they will have a week long of training, and each day, based on the participants in the room when their engagement, they will tell who can come back the next day.
Oh.
So they are filtering out the people so that they get the cream of the crop, the ones who are committed, the ones who are willing to go, and they don't tell you what the product is until on the 5th day. So you were showing up. I sat in the front row. My son is still in the hospital. My wife is, she's at home with our 2 kids. Our niece is living with us. And I was going and spending every single night at the hospital with my son. And on the, I think it was the day, I don't know, whatever day it was, the 4th or the 5th day, he passed away. And I still had to show up because I needed this job. I needed to create income for myself because I couldn't expect our donors, our supporters back in the States to send us money just so we can live, because we weren't doing ministry anymore. And we in fact hadn't, because our son was born 24 hours after we arrived in the Philippines. We never made it back to the area where we had been living, up in the mountains, way in the north. So on the day that he passed away, I go in early and I tell the trainer, I said, listen, you've seen me every day. I'm engaged, and I'm also the only Americano in the room. And I speak Tagalog. I speak the language. But they're doing all the training in English, of course. And I say, you see me every single day. I'm upbeat. I'm positive. I'm engaging. I'm going to ask you, if I don't respond upbeat today, can you please give me a pass? Because my son just passed away. Our son just passed away. And he said, yeah, sure, no problem. And so I sat there and I did the best I could and didn't lose it. And then that might have been the last day, or maybe the next day. I think the next day was probably the reveal. So tomorrow, and we started out with like 120 people in the room. And then we narrow it down to there's 20 people left. Wow. That get to have this job, this sales job. And then they say, you all are the best. You're the top. You're the ones who made it through. Either people self-selected themselves out, or they were told, don't come back tomorrow because they have a bad attitude or whatever. And then they say, and you all will be selling. And then they unveil Encyclopedia Britannica. And I said, well, I'm glad it wasn't, Kirby vacuum cleaners. And I have a very good friend who is the top of the top in Kirby Company to this day. Wow. But after all those days of focus and commitment and everything, pretty much it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to say no. So I got a job as an American speaking Tagalog, taking public transportation. I used to live in the mountains in the village up north, 12 hours away from the nearest town, with no running water, no electricity, wearing shorts and flip-flops every day and going out and cutting down trees for our firewood, to now living in Manila, had to go and buy shirts and ties. Wow. And a blazer. And I would take public transportation to the wealthy parts of Metro Manila to sell them Encyclopedia Britannica because it is such a prestige symbol. Wow. And I did that, and I rose to the second highest level in the company. And all the while, my wife was at home recuperating, and she was actually surrounded by our church family. And I don't know how far we want to go.
So tell me, in that process, you talked about, I literally, Christoff, see you doing the ultimate speaker competition. Like, I can see where it came from now. Like, seriously, all the things that
that trainer, that guy, that trainer, his name was Tony. Uh-huh. He was a Filipino, but he was very Americanized or very Western. And yeah, that probably was the first plant in my mind subconsciously. Like, you know what? Someday I want to be like Tony. I'm not going to make people wait 5 days to know what they're going to be selling. But
you are pretty good at making people wait. I'm just saying, you are pretty good at that. You've identified your open loop theory.
There we go.
Well, okay, Christoff. So you've got this amazing training. You learned about showing up with excellence and serving people at a high capacity. And then you end up in the States. And one of the things I heard you talk about twice already is the important. Now you didn't say it, but the importance of mentors. You talked about Wolfgang Puck and you talked about Les Brown. So in this season that you were in, you had gone over to what you feel is your life's mission. You struggled a little bit, but you learned a lot of skills in the struggling. I think sometimes we forget that even in the struggle, we develop muscle.
Sure. Oh, of course. But we don't
Yeah.
want to, I don't know if we don't want to. Nobody wants to, I think, admit when you're in it that this is the time that it can become growth or it can be a source of pain as a part of your history,
Right.
right? I mean, when I'm coaching my speakers, in our program, Stand in Ovation, our first module is pain into purpose.
Right.
How to turn our past into what I call a present. What is a present? A gift. Past into a present, so that, as Les Brown says, the things that we've gone through, we will hopefully have grown through.
Right.
I think it took me a long time to learn a lot of the lessons.
Yeah.
And now it really is about, while I have had and still do have my solo career, and you mentioned I'm so grateful to be nominated Best Motivational Speaker, but for many years and even currently, my focus is really on empowering other people, not just going after my own solo speaking career.
Yeah.
And I feel like, and it's very similar to what you're doing with UnBreakable. While you are on stages, you are creating platforms and you're creating opportunities and creating doors for people to come through that otherwise they wouldn't if they didn't have someone. I often say nobody's going to come knocking on your door, but the reality is that I do. And you do. Nobody came and said to me, Christoff, you should be a speaker coach, except probably my wife, Michelle. But outside of me, I didn't really have somebody telling me you could do this.
Yeah.
But I am one who does that for others, as are you, right? Because we see something in people that they don't see, or maybe they are afraid to recognize, or they've been told no so many times that it takes a lot for somebody to step out.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had this personal reflection time this morning because I happen to know somebody who doesn't quite get what I do. And I'm sure you have plenty of people who they're like, what do you do? Like, what is this thing? Right. And they don't get it because it's not their thing. It's not their gift. It's not their call. It's not their thing. But the people that do get it are the ones that take you to the next level. The Wolfgang Pucks, the ones that taught excellence in that service industry, the Les Browns that teach the excellence in showing up on stage and motivation, right? They get it. So tell me, you just mentioned a hard spot for a lot of people. They think, okay, I've got to go figure out this purpose thing on my own. But do you? Do you have to figure it out on your own, or is there an easier way, like finding a mentor or finding a coach or somebody who's excellent in what you're doing? So talk to us about that feeling. And maybe were there times in your life, Christoff, where you figured, God, I got to figure this out on my own?
So yes, yes, and yes. When I look back, and now that we are doing events, I really feel like the two things that are the most influential and impactful in an entrepreneur's life is events, or an event, and books. Books. Because those are the things that at least for me, this is not my book. This is the most amazing, powerful book by Jamie Kern Lima called Worthy. Have you ever heard of it?
I haven't, but I am taking note.
She said she wrote it for women. Michelle was a part of their launch, my wife, Michelle, as in terms of being a participant on their bestseller campaign. It's like 350 pages. I've read this, or about 300 pages, over the course of 6 months, or maybe 9 months. I'm a reader, but I take my time with this. And this is why books are so life-changing.
Mm-hmm.
They can be. And events. After my time in the Philippines, it took me 3 years to actually make it back to the US. What do I mean by that? I went to where I started, which was Guam, for a year, the island of Guam, and then Saipan, and then back to the island of Guam. So 1 year, 1 year, 1 year. Those are US territories. They weren't the Philippines, but they were still tropical islands. And I ended up finally making it to LA. I didn't know anybody. Well, no, that's not true. I did know somebody in LA, in Southern California. I take myself off track.
So 3 years to come home.
3 years to come home, living in LA, and let's take a commercial break. Oh, there we go. I lived in LA for a dozen years, or Southern California, Orange County and LA. And my last so let's talk about, things that people go through. My last 6 months in LA, I was homeless. My dad had been sick back home for 4 years with cancer. Little side note, I went on a journey of self-study about natural medicine and Chinese medicine and all these different things for my own purposes. To share with my family, but I'm not a medical professional, so they were not interested in my readings or anything.
Sure.
But I was living in LA, and it was great. There were highs and lows. And like I said, the last 6 months I was homeless, and not couch surfing. Like, I was homeless. And about a month or two before that happened, I went and got a storage unit. I'm a single guy. I don't collect things. I don't have a whole lot of possessions at this time, but I decided to go get a storage unit. Why? I don't know, but I believe the Lord did.
Yeah.
And I was prompted to go get a storage unit. And so I went and put my stuff there. And when I became homeless, I realized, okay, well, at least I have a place I can put my stuff and go get it every morning. And that's not the main story I wanted to share with you. We may come back to that. But after those 6 months ended, I went back to the Midwest, and I had to regroup. I had to re everything. And I took up my uncle's offer to come and live with him in St. Louis. And it is the proverbial cliche of living in the basement. I've got a room, it's fixed up. You could come and stay with me, but there's rules.
Yeah.
And now, so this was 18 years ago. So I was in my 40s, going and living in my uncle's basement. It was a nice basement. Thank you, Uncle Bob. And as soon as I left LA and landed in St. Louis, I said, oh my God, I miss LA. And every time I would say that, I would think, well, how is that possible? How could I miss LA when the last 6 months were terrible? They were crap. Like, it was really, I slept. And by the way, here's something that nobody ever tells you. There is not a single person who lives on the streets, because that's where the cars are. It's the sidewalks and beside the streets or off the road. But I was homeless, and I slept on bus stop benches. There was a parking lot that was around the corner. I would go over to my storage unit and get my duffel bag. And then, like, I had mosquito coils because there are mosquitoes. I bought candles because it was right next to a garbage dump. And there were nights that I also slept in my storage unit.
Yeah.
When I was in St. Louis, I thought, how can I say that I miss LA? Because I loved it and I hated it. And it was when I picked up a book that I had read many, many years ago called Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by a guy named T. Harv Eker. Thank you, T. Harv Eker, for all the work that you've done and do. Because that was the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey.
Wow.
And there was a seminar happening in San Diego. I was still in St. Louis. I was working at a company. I was working at a staff and recruiting company, and my boss said, I asked for time off. And my boss said, well, if you're going to this guy, we didn't agree on a lot of things, but he knew at least he had forward thinking. He knew that if I was going to something that was personal development that had nothing to do with staff and recruiting business, he knew I would come back a better, more motivated, more inspired, more productive employee. He said, I will contribute half. And so I went to this event in San Diego called Millionaire Mind Intensive. And as soon as I landed there in San Diego, I realized it wasn't LA, it wasn't the West Coast. It was being around the energy and the mindset of people who are entrepreneurs and doing cutting edge things and outside of, I guess, corporate America. And so it wasn't LA that I missed. It was the mindset and the attitude and the energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Christoff, a question for you. I love this story. Love it, love it, love it. I want to ask you, when you're going through this season of regret, of, maybe shame, of some different feelings probably that you had, could you feel in the energy, right, when you're with these motivators, that you can't even go to the place of feeling down or regretting or any of that, because your energy is focused over here with mindset and power and joy and gratitude? Tell me about that. Tell me about how the space that you're in, the people you surround yourself with, affects the temperature.
There were nights when I found a way to sneak back into the storage unit.
Oh. Like recently?
No. When I was homeless. When I was homeless, I and this was, again, I don't know. They didn't have any internal cameras. This was a 3-story building, and it was right around the corner from my apartment where I used to live. And so I at that time, I liked to go out, even though I had no money and I was homeless. I would find a way to, go have some drinks and I don't know, let loose, like have life and let go of the stress for a moment until I realized, oh yeah, I'm homeless. And so they closed, I believe it was like 7 p.m. Well, 7 p.m. is really early. And I knew that there was a way that I found a way that I could I could sneak in, make sure nobody was watching. This is right before closing time. Close that little garage door kind of thing. Almost hold my breath while the one security guard walks the halls, the 3 stories, and then I could hear the outside front door click. And it's a little bit after 7. I'll give it another 5 minutes, and then I would slowly open up that door and look, and there's nobody here. I can stay here. And I would go down. I did this not every night, but from time to time, I would go down and get one of those flatbed dollies and pull it up through the elevator, and then lay out my clothes and make like a little makeshift bed for myself. I have my Walkman. I probably had a screw top bottle of wine, and I'm writing in my journal, I'm a #1 best-selling author. I'm a motivational speaker. I'm listening to Les Brown or Tony Robbins on my Walkman, and then my brain is saying, no, you're not. You are homeless. But even in the middle of it, I knew that I wasn't going to stay there. I had no clue how it was going to change. I had no idea, but I also didn't feel like I deserved it, but I didn't feel like it was somebody else's fault. Wow. But I do wish at that time that somebody would have, hey, you need some money?
Right.
You need, I love my family. I will say that. I mean, my siblings and my parents. And
Yeah.
I remember 2 conversations, one with a brother, one with a sister. I only have one sister. One of them said, and this is during the days I still had a pager. So I would get a page to go to a phone booth and put in the coins and make the phone calls. And I remember and this is when somebody is not experiencing something, you don't know, right? And it's like when somebody passes away or somebody's going through cancer, it's like we don't know what to say unless we've experienced it. But in my homeless season, I remember one of my siblings on a payphone saying to me, well, if you had a what do you need? Like if you had a magic wand and you could wave the magic wand, like what would you wish for? And then I would say, well, if I had, if I could just I don't know, borrow $500 from somebody so I could get a place or this or that, or I would lift off these different things. And then that particular sibling would say, wow, yeah, that must be really tough. Because when they were saying the magic wand, I thought it was like the wish list.
Yeah. What do you want? I'm not a genie. What do you want?
It wasn't to fulfill the wish. It was just a conversation. And then the other sibling said, oh my God, Christoff, like you are going through such a hard time. This is like unimaginable. I don't know how you do it. And I say, I don't know either. But look,
I get by these phone calls.
Please insert another 50 cents. I think one of the biggest things that came out of me being homeless is empathy. As you know, Michelle and I, whenever we do any project, we always support some kind of a nonprofit. With our books, with our events, and we've worked with so many over the years, survivors of domestic abuse, children who, abuse children, veterans. I think the ones that resonate with me the most are feeding the homeless. Very few people knew I was homeless. Very few people knew. I was living in LA, as you know, and I showed up at the TV studios where they film live TV shows. I've been on hundreds of TV shows in the background. I've been on Judge Judy and Judge Joe Brown. I can't recount how many times. I was on the first 2 seasons of Deal or No Deal. I was there when they got the call to have their season renewed. I was on the first season of America's Got Talent, all in the background, and you get paid something like $6 or $7 an hour, and you're there for 12 hours, and they do something called specking. It's called speculating. So most of those shows, they have agencies that recruit people. And some people get to be guaranteed you'll get to work that day. But many of us, we spec. So we hear through the grapevine, hey, there's a show coming up tomorrow. You got to be there at 7:30. So we'd stand in line with 75, 100, 200 people. And then the assistant producers or associate producers would walk the line outside and look based upon how you look and what your demographic is. Okay, you, okay, go on in. You. And then you're begging and you're praying and you're pleading and you're standing in line maybe sometimes for 2 hours. Oftentimes I would walk for a couple miles to get to the place. And then they say, okay, the rest of you, goodbye. Wow. But it was exciting and it was fun. And I was an actor and I was pursuing acting. That's a whole other story as well. Wow. But I am on stages today.
You are on stages today.
I had a goal, a dream, a vision to be a stand-up comic. I did do stand-up comedy at the world famous Comedy Store in LA. Wow. And as you said earlier, everything that we experience, I mean, you said it in a different way, but it leads us to where we are today if we can see it. So I am not a famous actor, although we do have an episode on Prime Video.
That's right.
On a TV show called Speak Up. And I, myself and my wife are co-executive producers. So I have a little touch into the entertainment world. But now it's about empowering speakers and people that have a message to see that their messages really can bring inspiration and hope and courage and life and help people to become unbreakable.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I believe, when we started the Unbreakable journey, it started as a women's conference because just like you said, there's events and there's books, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are the places where I feel like inspiration can be birthed. At least it was for me. I remember my very first Zig Ziglar event that I ever went to, and I think it was called Motivation Seminars or something. Anyway, it was in Dallas, Texas. I went with the bank. I was a brand new employee at the bank, and I won a contest so I could go. They probably knew, just like your boss, that you go to these motivational meetings. Self-help improves us. Right?
Absolutely.
That when we do the internal work, everything that we touch elevates with us. I mean, it's just what happens, right? And it takes places like events, like conferences, to give us that hope. I love the book Worthy. And I want to ask you a question, and then I'm going to get back to this in a moment. But I want to ask you a question. There's probably, Christoff, a whole lot of people that are going to hear this podcast and be inspired by your story. And many of them are probably going to deal with feeling unworthy, unworthy of their desires, their hearts, their dreams, because maybe they made a mistake, or maybe they saw something from the wrong angle, or God forbid, maybe something happens like one of the speakers that came to the Ultimate Speaker competition who tragically ended somebody else's life from one choice, right? Maybe they're sitting back and they're feeling unworthy. What would you say to them with all of the experiences that you have found grace from?
Grace. Interesting, because that has become the name of our company as of last year, Grace Empowerment Enterprises. I think it's so much easier for me to coach other people. And I think we are always better coaches for others than we are for ourselves.
Sure.
And I'll tell you, I journal every morning. And before we got on here, I was wondering where we were going to go, you and me. And I had to put myself in the shoes of the people that are in our programs when I say you can do it and the world needs what you have to offer. And there's a place where, yes, we embrace that we are the messenger and that our message matters, but then we have to remove ourselves from the equation. And I love, anybody who knows Christoff, I love the spotlight. I love the applause. I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry. I was gonna say I'm not a person without ego. I am nominated for this award. I would like to win it. I desire and I intend to, because that is something that I value. I'm going to come back to that in a second. Remind me about number of awards, okay? Please.
Yes.
I say this: mindset, message, mission. Actually, write that down. Mindset, message, mission. Those of you who are listening. We first need the mindset of confidence. Confidence of what? Confidence knowing that what I have to offer has value. It's your knowledge, your expertise, your passion, your story, and that's it. Those things we already have. We've lived through them. So even those who are considering, I don't know if I want to become a speaker. I mean, I think of Justin, who is a current member of our elite program. In December, he said yes to my master class to give it a shot. Let me check this thing out. He didn't have a drive or a calling or a vision to become a speaker, but he approached it with his superpower of curiosity. Yes, Justin, I'm talking about you. You've got to listen to the podcast. In that, he found out that he's actually got a knack for it.
He's so good.
He's so good, but it's because he opened his mind to it as curiosity. He didn't say, I'm doing this. He said, I'm going to give it a shot. And when I do something, I give it my all. And then he said, well, there's times in the past where he used his curiosity with salsa dancing. He gave it a shot. He put all his time into it. Turns out, not his gig. And so I'm just so inspired with people like Justin, because he is open. And this is what we have to do, is be open to the possibility. People don't have to quit their job. You know, you're talking about going to an event. Sometimes companies feel like, oh, well, if somebody goes to this motivational event, they're going to quit their job. Well, if they do, they do. But everybody doesn't have to quit their job. Not everybody's meant to be an entrepreneur. Right. And yes, I'm speaking fast because I'm excited right now. And that is a shift in your vocalization when you speak. Too many speakers out there are talking. Somebody told speakers, and they're still telling speakers, that you're supposed to talk like you're having a conversation with somebody over a cup of coffee. And it's one tone, one note, one volume, one pitch, one pace, and it puts people to sleep. Okay.
They're drinking the wrong coffee, Christoff.
They're drinking the wrong coffee. Mindset, message, mission. A mindset of confidence that you know, or be open to believe that what you have to offer has value. Your passion, your knowledge, your expertise, and your story. It can be of some inspiration to other people. You don't have to have a rags to riches or an overcoming death, or you went through the deepest, darkest depths of trauma for your story to be of value. Too many people are thinking out there, well, I'm a normal person. I go to work. I have a job. I love my family. I have a decent career. What can I do? You have overcome something that you don't know. Maybe you got fired from a job, and for you, it's just something that you had to, or maybe you got the job because you envisioned it, you were manifest. There's something about you that you have that you don't even realize, that if you feel a pull to be a speaker, that you shouldn't always say should, but I'm going to say it would do well for you to consider it. Mindset of confidence, message of clarity. There are so many speakers out there that are speaking, but they're speaking anytime, anywhere to anyone. Why?
Sure.
Everybody's message is not for everybody. And then mission, that's the last part. There comes a time, that's the beginning of the We Are the World, but that's not what I'm going to say. Isn't that the first line? There comes a time where
I don't know. I've just got the lyrics of
mindset, message, mission. A message of clarity, getting clear on what your message is. Teresa Poor is clear on her message. It's about becoming and being and remaining unbreakable and empowering others. My message is empowering heart-centered leaders to share their gifts and greatness. And then the mission is when it's become something bigger than you. Yeah. It's not about one event or one project. It's a calling. It's a conviction. And so that brings me back to now I feel with all great confidence and joy and strength and conviction that I am at the same place as I was when I answered the call to be a missionary.
Wow.
I knew that's what I was supposed to do then. I knew that I was willing to sacrifice to do whatever it takes. And I knew that there was a purpose for it. Mm. And I am now at that same place. I've never said that before. It just came to me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You are at the same place where you have so clear messaging. And now, because of the empathy muscle that you established on the journey, now you can truly see people on all stages, or should I say from all stages, Christoff?
Yeah.
From all stages. Because here's the deal, that the gift I think that you bring to the table so many times is overlooked, or not even given significance to. But I will say this, the gift that you bring to the table is your ability to see people, and to not only see it, but to empower and encourage it. And Christoff, that gift wouldn't exist if you hadn't seen yourself in so many hard places, right?
Yeah.
And you probably wouldn't have the hunger for it, the desire to see people, had somebody said, "Oh, your magic wand experience, here's that $500." Right?
Boop.
Here it is.
Yeah.
Because our passion and our purpose isn't just given to us on a whim. It's given to us when we've had to dig through some things to figure out who we are. And it's in those moments that you've got this unbreakable foundation behind you. Right?
We found it. That's what I was saying when I was journaling this morning. I was asking myself, well, I don't know. What do we, okay. I wrote, I don't consider myself unbreakable, and I don't know if I feel worthy to be a guest on this podcast. But that's not true. That's the self-limiting beliefs. That's the self-doubt that still creeps in for all of us.
Because you're human.
We are human. And that's why it's an ongoing thing, right? It's not, well, I got it figured out. It's not, we got it figured out. We do. We have a grasp. We now walk into it. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't ever come back. Just because your past didn't turn out how you wanted it to doesn't mean your future can't be better than you ever imagined. That's from her book. Couple quick little, because it's such a powerful book. Oh, please help me find it. Okay. You don't soar to the level of your hopes and dreams. You stay stuck at the level of your self-worth. You don't rise to what you believe is possible. You fall to what you believe you're worthy of. When I said nobody ever came and knocked on my door and said, hey, you should be a speaker coach, I was already confident in my service and hospitality training. I was doing, I live in Las Vegas. I've done training for hotels and restaurants up and down the strip, around the country. I felt confidence in that. As a motivational, not as motivational, but as a speaker, as a guest, as a keynote speaker at conferences and conventions, I felt very confident. This was a handful of years ago. I saw my mentors and I started comparing myself. I didn't just take the influence and impact, but I started comparing myself to them and say, I couldn't be like them. I could never reach that level. And then we were at an event with Les Brown, with many other mentors. I was being awarded along with 20 plus others. And there was about 200 or 300 people in the room. And this was a, not red carpet, gold carpet event. And when we were at that event, even though I was getting an award for Master Connector, because that is one of my superpowers, connecting people. Even though I knew that was happening, my wife, Michelle, knew that I was not there in the moment. She knew that she saw my brain ticking, and I didn't feel like I belonged there. I wasn't worthy. Up until that time, that word worthy wasn't even a thing, but that was the thing that my wife said to me, 3 words: you need to know your worth. And I think for men, it is not a term that we are used to hearing or saying. For women, it is. There's a lot of talk around that. And so when Michelle shared that book with me, and Jamie, the author, even says this is for women, but it's also for men. And she talks about, women mindset and issues, but it's so powerful and it is so important. And we are worthy. You are worthy because you are here, because you are God's creation, because God has a calling for you. Whether you're wherever you are when your spiritual journey, doesn't matter. God still has a calling for you. Yeah. It doesn't matter. You still have gifts and talents and abilities, and you have passions and you have a purpose. And I am just so grateful for you, Teresa, you and Royal. Our paths crossed at the right time. And now here we are doing this together. And you you have such a grand vision and such a great heart in helping and spotlighting and empowering others. And I'm just, I'm so excited for this and grateful for this opportunity.
Wow. Well, I am equally grateful, my friend. I actually had a class about this morning that, we each have tremendous gifts and talents, but collaboration is required to bring things to the next level. You talk about Michelle and how she had guided you and supported you in all these things. Yesterday, I was at this beautiful wedding, and we are also in the process of building out unbreakable marriages. But I was at this beautiful wedding yesterday, and for the first time, I had heard a husband shall leave his family, and the two shall become one. And I always thought of it from one lens, but yesterday I thought of it from exactly what you just described with Michelle. And that is the two shall become one. She completes and she sees the other 180 degrees to your 360. Together, you become this one superpower. And the husband and wife is the model, but we also get to do that. So, Christoff, while I have this tremendous vision for what Unbreakable can do in the world, you bring an angle, a vision, a spotlight that I don't have the empathy muscle for. Right? You bring something so beautiful to the equation. And together, when we charge forward together through this platform, whatever that looks like, we bring more to the table because that excellence rises and we can reach more people. And I think this is the perfect time for us to go into a real quick introduction to what it is that we are looking to bring together to the table, because wow. You and I are both passionate about empowering others and supporting people along their journey, whatever it is. I also was in the direct sales and still have a pink wall, so you could probably guess.
Yeah.
It is a
Mary
pink business.
Kay.
Yes. And I still am part of Mary Kay and love Mary Kay. And one of the things that I found on my journey with Mary Kay is that when I was with it, so much of my attention was focused on helping people become their best in the Mary Kay world, as opposed to helping people become the best whatever God has for them, right? And that's one of the shifts that I had to have with Unbreakable, is the fact that I want to empower and inspire and encourage people with whatever tools and resources God placed in their hands. And right now, for you, it's a microphone. You're empowering them to share their story. For me, there's several different resources and abilities. But as you and I discovered together, one of the things that we love to do is to help people share their stories. I believe stories are the keys to freedom. First, you unlock where you have been holding yourself hostage. Then you turn around, you give that key to somebody else, and it unlocks them right into their potential and their purpose. And so, we're launching together this beautiful journey to help people share their stories, both at in-person events and in a beautiful book collaboration for Unbreakable Men. So, Christoff, you and I have both been part of anthologies. We've both been part of the power of helping people showcase their story, not only on a podcast, which is beautiful. It's so funny. My husband listened to this CD today. Somebody at church gave it to him, and he's like, "Oh, dang, I got to find a CD player."
Right.
So he'd been like putting off. And then finally this morning he listened to it. And it was this 3-minute, like powerful message. And this used to be a limitation. It was an opportunity, but limited, right? With our podcast, it like took the lid off of limitations. You don't have to have certain equipment. You can push play and you can hear people's stories. But then there's also the impact that happens when you read somebody's story. Different senses get activated, different feelings, because you're not just hearing it real quick delivered on a podcast while there's interaction going on, but you're actually receiving what they have to share. So tell us a little bit about how you see this coming together. I know we'll talk about the details later.
Sure.
Today we just wanted to plant the seed, but tell me why you're excited about this, Christoff.
Well, can I tell you that we've done this quite a few times?
Yes.
Michelle's first book, called Dare to Care, Healthcare Superheroes Share Stories of Resilience, Hope, and Inspiration. the power, and her second book, Dare to Care. I won't go through all of them. And then Transplant Hope by our client and friend, Courtney Kaplan. The power that happens and the transformation that happens with a book is very different, like you said, and even more personal, because a person is sitting in their room, and I like the physical copies. Of course, everything will be on Kindle and digital as well, but people will pick up a book and maybe never ever get to see you on stage, maybe never land on your podcast. But then also, for example, this book, Transplant Hope, our local Nevada Donor Foundation purchased 100 copies to put into our local library. So in Clark County, we have 25 public libraries. Each one has 4 copies of this book. So while it's amazing that it can be in people's homes, to be in a library until somebody steals them or doesn't return them, it's being passed on from one person to the next over and over again. And the things that we are doing are meant to create legacy. So this collaboration of Unbreakable Men, and look, my friends, it requires a woman to helm this, right? I mean, this is remarkable. It's you, Teresa Poor, who is launching this together with us. So we will be Hummingbird Health to Wealth. Michelle and I's publishing entity will be the publisher. And we will invite 20, 25 men to share their stories. And just understand, my friends, that you, like I said earlier, just like on stage, when you share a message in a book, it will touch people's lives. It touches them. It hits them emotionally. A person may not allow themselves to be moved to tears sitting in the room, in the audience, but if they read your story and they're in their chair or in their bed by themselves and they're in that quiet moment, you are touching and changing lives.
Yeah.
And then also it's a way for people to then get to know you by, what else does he do? Oh, he's a coach for health and, I got to look him up. Yeah. And to expand what people are doing. And I think it's remarkable, and it's something that is so needed. And like you said, I didn't know this until you told me, men's mental health awareness for men is in the month of June.
Right.
And we're losing too many, and many of them are veterans, but not all. Suicide is so pervasive, and it's an option, people think. Right. And it cannot be.
Right.
So if this can help empower and give people courage and hope, and know that there's people there to help and support and to listen, I think most of the time when we do a project, meaning any of us, it becomes much more than, like, we didn't have any plan. We had no idea, no vision that this book was going to end up in our local library. No idea. But once you follow something and you start to put it into implementation, it starts to take on a life of its own, and other doors. And as I always say, it's all energy. We're all connected. It all comes back to you. So we're all connected. It goes out to things that we didn't even understand where it could go.
Absolutely. Well, it is powerful. And, I think also one of the things about sharing your story on a podcast or on a stage, even sometimes we get so robotic with sharing our message. I was speaking at the Unbreakable Women's Conference a couple of weeks ago. And one of the things that I just had this amazing insight that so many times in our life, we've come to this place where our story literally holds us chained down. We feel unworthy. We feel all those feelings. We feel like nobody will ever understand. So we don't tell anybody, right? It literally holds us chained down. And then on the flip side, we think our story is so insignificant in the
Mm-hmm.
lives of others. It is almost like this double-edged, ridiculous sword that keeps us so stuck, right? And when you can reverse it and you can see that the significance of a moment, while it helped shape you, it doesn't define you. However, the significance of what you've overcome could literally free somebody else. That's where the real beauty of our stories comes from, right? And so to be able to read it, to be able to write it, to put the proper value and the proper perspective on it, and then put it out in the world, wow, 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 lives get changed from it. So I am so
Yeah.
excited about this collaboration and partnership. Christoff, I know that people are going to, number one, appreciate these moments of vulnerability that you shared. I am personally honored and blessed that you said twice, I've never done this before. I've never shared this before. Thank you for feeling safe.
Mm.
And thank you for sharing what you shared, because I believe somebody needed your boldness and your willingness to be vulnerable today. Thank you.
And this is just between you and me anyway, right?
Yeah, sure. That little checkbox you signed off on, forget about that.
In perpetuity, worldwide, forever and ever. It is important, friends. Yeah, vulnerability creates credibility. I learned that a long time ago. It's not a cliche or a catchphrase. It's really true.
Yeah.
And as people say, you never know what somebody is going through or has gone through. And we have so much more in common than we think we do because of our outward differences.
So
And you're doing so many great things, Teresa. And God bless you for that.
God bless you, Christoff. Now, one final.
Yes.
Final.
My
You
favorite
have
color.
you have two things. Okay, so final. So number one, how can people vote for you? Because I know they're inspired and they want to help you win this amazing award for the
Absolutely.
Silver State.
Are we going to put a link?
We certainly will, but they need to know what this is.
It's called the Silver State Awards, and it is for the state of Nevada. And this is the 37th annual. And between now and September 1st, people can go on this link and click and vote 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 and click and vote. Best motivational speaker, Christoff J. Weihman, 2025.
Christoff J. Weihman. Now, Christoff J. Weihman, you also have an amazing event coming up in September that I am honored and blessed to be able to participate in.
August 8th through 10. August 8th through 10.
Oh, August. Did I say September? I'm sorry.
That's okay. The Heart-Centered Summit is such, it's different than our event called the Ultimate Speaker Competition, which, by the way, friends, she didn't tell you, but I got to interview Teresa, and she happens to be our reigning champion from Ultimate Speaker Competition. We say USC Austin, and congratulations on that. I know.
Thank you.
Take someone else to say it. She wasn't going to introduce herself, and I'm the winner. But this event called the Heart-Centered Summit, for years as I have been promoting and inviting and enrolling people for Ultimate Speaker Competition, I always found myself using the phrase, calling heart-centered leaders and speakers, heart-centered. And I have my 8-week speaker coaching program online called Stand in Ovation. A part of that program, one part of one module, is tapping into our gifts and greatness and identifying those. And if we were going to have fun and be creative, who would you be if you were a superhero? So it's first like, well, who's your favorite superhero? Oh, well, I like Batman. I like, Superman. Why do you like them? Usually it's because, not just because they're cool, but it usually is related to traits and values that we either see in ourselves or we aspire to even more for ourselves. And then we take it to the next thing of, okay, well, if not those, but you, who would you be? What would be your powers and your name and special abilities, etc.? So from that little part that we take about 15 minutes in our module, we actually created the Unleash Your Inner Superhero experience. That's a part of the Heart-Centered Summit. And so everybody in the room, audience, sponsors, vendors, speakers, everyone, we'll do this 2-part workshop where we go much deeper than what would be the name and what would be the superpowers. And it really is about identifying who we are, what makes us unique, and how we're called to show up and serve in the world. And then we do it in this fun and creative way. And those who are speakers, we have a dozen or so spots open. Those that are willing to and inspired to invest in themselves, they get to, in addition to their own individual message, they get to bring that superhero persona to life on stage. And you don't even know what that means, but I'll tell you, it's fun, it's exciting, and it's such an empowering event. So if you're a heart-centered leader, heart-centered speaker, wherever you are in your speaking journey, connect with Teresa or myself. And I tell you, it will be a life-changing experience.
Truly, truly, truly. Well, I can say that your Ultimate Speaker competition was powerful. And now knowing that you're leading with this place in mind, of course it is. Because once people know who they truly are, no one can tell them who they are. No one can tell them who they're not. That's right. That's right. It's part of the foundation. So, Christoff, I am so grateful to know you. I'm excited. I am blessed by your story, and I know that God has you doing amazing things in the world. Thank you for being on the Unbreakable Men's podcast today and for sharing what has truly made you unbreakable, my friend. We will see you soon. Thanks for joining.
Cheers. God bless everyone.
Well, friends, I know that today's message was so powerful, and I want to say thank you for joining us. You know, as Christoff and I talked about so many of the things that took him from those hard moments in life into where he's at today, mentorship was a big piece of it. And maybe you're at the place where you're like, I feel like Christoff, and I want to be a mentor, and I want to step into my purpose and figure out what mentorship could look like. Let's have a conversation. Or maybe you're feeling some of those moments like Christoff had when he was making those phone calls to those family members, and the answer that he thought he was going to get wasn't what he received. And he was really hoping that maybe somebody would show up and mentor. Let's have a conversation, because whatever place you're at on this journey of life, you have something to give, and you have an opportunity to be received by those who see the potential in you, like Christoff and myself. So thank you for not giving up on yourself. Thank you for joining us here at Unbreakable Men. You know, we are all about building up the next generation of leaders, of men who understand the value of what they bring to the table, not only for where you're at today, but for the future generations to come. God bless you. And until next time, go out there and remain unbreakable.